back to Baseball Books and Banter with me, your host, Nicole Aslin. You will have noticed that when we show the actual interview, I am in a different outfit and a different location. I have decamped this Sunday to my parents' house on Cape Cod, so that's why you get the beautiful view behind you. But the interview was really fun. Bill Carter, I think we talk about it in the podcast, but we met through Barnes & Noble in Hingham. He's another local author. We did talk, I don't think this is going to make the episode, but he's also a community theater actor and will be playing Bob Crachit at the end of the week. I don't know how long it runs. I'm hoping before I get to the last part of my recording, I'll try to look up the schedule so you guys can go see him, because he's growing the mutton chops, the Bob Crachit mutton chops. Whew. The reason I'm a little frazzled today is the kitten has had her surgery yesterday, and she decided to lose her ever-loving mind last night, chewing on everything. She's very well recovered from her little excursion to the vet. The other two cats during the day were very excited to not have the kitten around, and were very clingy, as you can see by some of the pictures I posted on Instagram. But so sports-wise, the Bruins fired their head coach, Jim Montgomery, and actually before I even got here this morning on Sunday, November 24th, he was hired by the St. Louis Blues, so he didn't lose his job for long, so that makes you feel better. I'm bummed. I like Jim Montgomery, but the new guy is from Medford, Mass. He was the assistant coach, I think, Joe Sacco. So hopefully the Bruins, they've won their last 2 games since the firing, so that is a good sign. Anything else? The Patriots play today, but that's it's just kind of there. The Celtics are obviously still doing great. They just beat the Wizards, and they play this afternoon, so I'm excited about that. And just gearing up for Thanksgiving. Things I'm obsessed with this week. There's not a ton because I've been actually working hard, which is fun. I'm on a big project at work, so a lot of tech writing to do. But as always, the Great British Bake Off, it's down to the final, I think, the 3. The person that got kicked off this week, I'm kind of bummed. She was really funny, and I thought she was really good. But I think the final 3 is Georgie, Dylan, and Christiane. And I'm kind of okay with any of them winning, but I kind of want Christiane. Dylan's fun because he's young and cute and looks like a fictional hero. But Christiane's just been kind of fun the whole season with his flavors and everything. So we shall see what happens. I need that show to run like 100 times a year because it's so comforting and so sweet and so just lovely. Other than that, I've been at home with the cats, doing the sports thing, doing house stuff, trying to clean. It's going to be the year anniversary of my mom's death, so I'm planning on taking some of her Christmas decorations and putting them up this year at my house. So follow me on the socials, and you'll see the Christmas village that hopefully will not get destroyed by 3 terrible cat children. But anyway, so Thanksgiving's going to be weird, but we're doing it here at the Cape. My dad's in town. My brother and his girlfriend are coming up. My uncle just moved up here to Cape Cod, so he's going to be there. And then my aunt lives down the street. So it'll be a good family time. And I think Duncan, the dog, might pop in for a visit, which will be fun. He got real chunky since Kelly and her family took over. But he's so cute. You'd love the Dunkin' Donuts. But other than that, I don't have much else to talk about today. So without further ado, let me give you Bill Carter. Anyway, welcome back to Baseball Books and Banter with me, your host, Nicole Aslin. Today's guest is actually a really funny story. I guess it's not that funny. For authors, it's a funny story of how we met. I did an event at Barnes & Noble Hingham, a local author event. The next local author event, I had a couple friends, Rich Feidelberg, who's been on the podcast, and Mike Carini from Abington, who were on the little group panel. And so I, of course, talked to everybody on the panel, and I met William Carter. And then I, of course, preached the gospel of the New England Crime Bake to him, and he came this year, and he got announced as a debut author of 2024, which is always super fun. And I make sure to always attend that because I remember in 2019, it's just the most fun thing to do is just to get up and talk your book. So without further ado, William Carter.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. So my name is William Carter, Bill to my friends. I've been writing most of my life, and Um, after many years of banging my head against the wall, I published my first crime novel in July of this year. And so far, so good. Been doing a lot of outreach, social media, and live events and stuff. So it's been a wonderful experience so far. Yeah.
which is always fun. Yeah, I really my first book, unfortunately came out 3 months, 4 months before the pandemic hit. So I got 4 full months of like a library event and like doing some interviews, and then it was like, oh, by the way, we're shutting everything down. And I was like, okay, great. Thanks, guys. So I'm kind of jealous of all the cool stuff everybody else is doing with their first books, but I'm so excited because there's so many great new authors out there. As for those that are watching this on YouTube, you can see the guitars in the back. Bill is not just a writer, he is also a musician. So like all the creative juices flowed through him, apparently.
Yeah.
And what's the band? It's called Faded Halo.
Faded Halo, yes.
Okay, what kind of music?
We originally did our own stuff. Because I've been working with the drummer and the guitar player. They're two of my best friends. The three of us have been working together since 1990.
Oh.
Yeah. And then other band members have come and gone, but another good friend of mine who plays bass and keyboards, he joined us in 2013, and that's been the best iteration of this band. But so we did originals for a long time, and then finally in 2006, we realized that a lot of the original venues or venues that would support original music have dried up. And if we want to ever make any money, we should do covers. So we switched to a cover band in 2006, and it's been a great experience. We still pepper in originals here and there. But yeah, so like classic rock, we do songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, so on. A lot of versatility, Metallica to Van Morrison.
Oh, geez.
So
any Britney Spears in there?
Not yet.
Okay, because that's my jam.
You never know. Okay.
If you need a Britney backup singer, like I'm totally there. That's really cool. So if anybody's looking for a band, like there you go. That was the sales pitch. Not only does he write fire crime novels, and I'm not saying fire. Well, I am saying fire like in a good way, but also because it's about fire.
Yeah,
literally. So yeah, tell people about Fire and Wrath.
Sure. So it's a crime thriller set in Plymouth County, Massachusetts. So it's about a career criminal, a professional arsonist named Jack Coyle, who's on the run from the mob and the authorities. And he's coerced into helping his childhood buddy, who's now a Plymouth sheriff's deputy, who has a string of unsolved arsons on his hands. And there's a great deal of political pressure for him to solve this as quickly as possible. They have no leads. There's no connection, no apparent connection between the victims. So he knows that his old buddy Jack is in the area, and he thinks, fight fire with fire, literally. Like, who better to catch an arsonist than a professional fire starter? So, and Jack is just, I mean, he's in his 40s. He has a lot of regrets. He has a lot of guilt. He's made a lot of mistakes, and he's at this point in his life where he's trying to maybe try to make up for things he's done before. So there's some a couple of redemptive arcs throughout the story. So it has a nice emotional depth to it. And I think it's something that will stay with the readers long after they finish the last page. Yeah.
And is it's going to be a standalone? Or is it going to be a series or?
It is, yeah. So sorry. Funny story. This is actually the third novel in a series that I've been writing.
Oh.
So I wrote a crime novel in 2006. That was like my great American crime tragedy masterpiece. And the main character was a different person. And he was this college-bound teenager who moves to this small town in Pennsylvania. And he gets wrapped up in the local politics about a girl. And eventually he's too much of a disruptor to remain there. So the powers that be frame him for a crime he didn't commit and send him to juvenile prison.
Oh.
So, and he's like this like straight arrow, just clean cut kid. And so he gets trapped in the criminal justice system and emerges a hardened criminal. And so he puts together his own crew over the years. And then once they have a strong enough power base, they go back to that town and burn it to the ground.
Nice.
So he died. The main character dies at the end because there was
Spoiler
really no.
alert
Yeah,
for anyone
spoilers.
who
Sorry.
ever sees that hidden draft.
Yes, yeah. Um, so he dies at the end, but one of his henchmen, who was originally just this minor throwaway
Sure.
character, was this slightly crazy arsonist named Jack Coyle. And he jumped off the page unexpectedly. It was like this that strange storytelling alchemy
Yeah,
where things happen that you don't expect. And I was like, wow, this guy is just really cool.
right.
And so once that was done, I think, well, where am I going to go next? And I'm like, I like him. I'd like to see where he's going to go from here. So I wrote a novel about him in 2009, taking place in Boston. And that was a nice, fast paced crime thriller. And my mentor, who is a professor and a published writer, I met him through a class I was taking at Harvard. And I started in that class and he said, okay, I like what you're doing. This is great. Keep going with it. When it's done, I'll show it to my publisher.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was great incentive. So I spent the whole summer working on it. It came out really well. And so we sent it to his publisher in the fall of 2009. And they liked it. They liked the story. They liked the voice. They liked the character. But the pacing was just too slow. They said, we write airplane thrillers.
They
Write
want
page
right.
thrillers. This was a more of a kind of contemplative, like ponderous kind of story. I mean, it wasn't like glacially slow,
No,
but
no.
it was like thoughtful. It took its time.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, nobody ever talked to me about pacing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So my professor's suggestion was actually to read the Lee Child books, the Jack Reacher
Okay.
stories. And that taught me so much about keeping like a good pace, but still adding some emotional depth and some
Right.
character development and stuff. So rather than go back and rework that entire thing, I had this idea for what would become Fire and Wrath, his next adventure. And so I said, well, why don't I just take everything I've been learning
Yeah.
and just pour it all into this? And it was a very offbeat story. So a lot of great things came together in it. And so my mentor did hook me up with an agent in 2017.
Nice.
And this manuscript was done. And so I showed it to him. He's like, okay, we can work with this. And we did over the next 7 years.
Oh my gosh.
Like 20 something rounds of revisions where I would send him the Word document. He would track changes like literally line by line and say, okay, here's everything that's wrong with it. Go back and fix it. And it just kept going over and over again until we got it in good shape. And the biggest breakthroughs happened just in the last couple of years. So we gave it to a professional reader, which I didn't know that vocation existed.
I know, right? Why did that not get, why wasn't I major in that college? Like that would have been ideal. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. So we sent to this woman, very nice woman down in Virginia, and she read it. She loved it, which was great. I mean, it came a long way from the first draft. I mean, it's like light years of difference.
Sure.
And, but she did give me some great constructive criticism, and I took her suggestions and incorporated them. And the story certainly improved as a result. But then the big thing was my agent has been in the industry for years. He used to work at a publisher, and he kind of went out on his own. And so he's well connected. So he gave it to a very high level, high profile editor at one of the big five and showed it to him, which of course, perfect world. Ideally,
he'd go, wait a minute. This is the novel I've been waiting for.
Exactly. Yes. So that was the hope. I wasn't holding my breath, but I said at the very worst, he should be able to give us really good constructive criticism.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. He's like, yeah, I like it, but I'm not interested in taking it, buying it, whatever. But he gave me 2 gigantic pieces of advice. And without any spoilers. So the way the novel had been set up all along, it was broke up into 3 more or less equal parts. So parts 1 and 3 were present day with the investigation, but part 2 was a long extended flashback to 30 plus years before, which was the genesis of the entire story. Like it all started there. And he loved that. He's like, I love the way it all ties together, but it kills the momentum. He's like, you should try to intersperse the flashbacks throughout the story, prolong the suspense and keep the tension going. And I was like, one of those things like, why did I not think of that?
Right.
Yeah. And so, and then and originally there were two killers. So there's like that false resolution where they did find the serial killer, but then they realized there was a second one out there, which I thought was a nice twist, but
they did not.
He did not. No, he was just like, the main killer has such a compelling story and
Yeah.
motivation. Is like, just stick with that. Just focus on that.
Narrow
And
it.
so I was like, yeah. So it took me like a few months to do all these changes, a lot of cutting and pasting, and to try to space it out so that it worked and it flowed.
And you weren't doing like present flashback, present flashback, present flash, or flashbacks for like 2 chapters. Yeah, I can imagine that must be hard to try to plan, because obviously in the flashback you're going to get more information, but you don't want to spoil the present day information. So you're like, okay, how am I going to break that up now?
Yes, it took a lot of planning and me just looking it over and trying to find the best way to space it out. And so the thing is, like, what happens is the main character Jack finds this journal, and so when he finds at the end of part 1. Okay. So then sort of part 2 was just like a re-dramatization of this journal. Yeah. So I had to find a way. Okay, where am I going to put this? Where am I going to start the flashbacks? And so it's about 100 pages in, and he finds a new name, a new person connected with the whole thing, and this person met a tragic end at a young age. And so he was thinking about, this kid, like, he had his whole life ahead of him, like, what must have his last day been like? And so then that's where I started the flashback to sort of transition to that. So originally it was just a flashback, like every 3 or 4 chapters. But as that story ramped up and it got going, I did start alternating like every other chapter, and then it finished as big climactic near the end. And so I think I did a decent job with that, but it took a lot of time to figure it out.
Well, I know we're not supposed to look at like our Goodreads and our Amazon reviews. I do anyway, because like whatever, I'm a masochist. It's very well reviewed. I mean, Amazon, it's like all 5 stars, and Goodreads, it's 4.96, which I think's almost unheard. And on Goodreads, I think it was 94 reviews. So that's a lot of great. So obviously you did something right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I was pleasantly and astonished by the feedback it's been getting, because I was terrified.
Well, yeah, it's the first time it's kind of out there in the world, and it's out of your hands now. Like, you can't go back and be like, let me fix that. Let me fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but that would really kill. Speaking of killing momentum, like, I'm taking it back. So that's really cool. And so I love that idea, the alternating chapters too. Now, fire is one of my biggest fears. So I haven't read the book yet, because I just don't like fire. I mean, I have a wood stove here in my house, and it took me 10 years since I've lived here to put a fire in it, a couple of years.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, I don't want it, because what if it goes crazy and then it like explodes? And so I just, mainly because of the 3 cats, I'm like, I'm going to have to pick a cat, because not all 3 of them are going to run with me. Like, I don't know who's going to be able to be picked up. So as you can see, one right here. So I haven't read it yet, but did you have to do a lot of, this is going to sound weird, arson research?
Yes.
To figure out how to put that in there?
Oh yeah, yes. So it's all about him like going canvassing these crime scenes, and some of them are like months old because it's been going on for a while. And so I had to learn so much about fire in general, like the behavior of fire and fire investigation. So I did tons of research, and I said, to the point, like probably like most crime writers, I wouldn't want the FBI looking at my search history.
Sure. Like, my poison book. Yeah. Yep.
Like, this guy's gonna blow up something one of these days. We got to keep an eye on him.
You're like, no, look at my 5-star reviews. It's totally normal, guys. It works.
Yeah, exactly. So and I don't know how a lot of writers feel about that, but I did put endless hours into the research, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was like, I really enjoyed doing it because I wanted that authenticity. and so one of my cousins is a veteran firefighter of like
Oh,
20 plus years.
awesome.
And when I found out he bought it and was reading it, once again, I was like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
But he did um like I've been posting about it on Facebook, obviously,
Sure.
because
That's what
that's
we
what you do.
do.
Yep. And he commented on one of my posts and said, dude, you were a born fire investigator. You got everything right. Like, I'm so impressed. And I was like, oh,
Oh my God.
yeah. So I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
huge sigh of relief. Yeah.
Right.
So, and then, like I said, I don't know if you were there for that conversation, but at the convention, like Jules O'Brien came up to me after I read my little excerpt, and she's like, "Are you a fire investigator?" I'm like, "No," and she's like, "Because I am," and
I don't think I
I
knew that.
yeah, I was like, "Wow,"
I
and
love her.
she said, like that whole thing about how like that's why I wanted to read that excerpt because it had a really
Yeah.
nice little twist to it about the super glue and the
Right.
smell it gives off like cyanide.
Yeah.
Like so I had to back my way into a lot of things to
Yeah.
to sort of set it up. And she was like, I didn't know super glue did that. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
I believe it's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, in the
Yeah.
book I read, the
Yeah.
internet's never wrong, right? Wikipedia
Right.
is totally
Right.
right. That's how I got
Yeah.
my research. That's why I
Yeah.
decided to write about baseball because I was like, I'm pretty comfortable with baseball.
Yeah.
So the only thing I
Exactly.
needed to buy was poison books because attention to my FBI agent, I am not familiar with poisons, other
That's
than
right.
like poinsettias are poisonous to cats and lilies. Like I know how to
Oh yes.
that
Yes.
kind of stuff, but yeah,
Mm.
I didn't learn a lot about. And of course, the British crime dramas where you're like, oh, if you smell almonds on their breath, it's arsenic or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of stuff I know. But yeah, it
Mm.
that I did not know Jules was a fire investigator. How did I not know
Oh,
that? She's awesome. I'm so glad she joined the board because she's an author in Maine. We're trying to get her published so that next year
oh,
she's going to be the next um, debut. She's going to coordinate her own debut author
oh,
uh,
nice.
event. I hope so.
Oh, great.
She said she won the log line slam with the agents. So where you do your little
Oh,
one liner and
yeah.
Jennifer Gordon, who is also kind of a horror mystery writer. She's the one
Mm.
who got us Gabino this year for the Crime Bake, who was,
Oh,
I don't even know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but he was amazing. Like
really?
the nicest guy, which is so funny because he like murders people heinously. And he's like, but he's so sweet. And I mean, he walked in and he's like, hey, Nicole. And I'm like, we're just friends on Instagram. Like, I didn't know we were on a first name basis, but I'll take
Yeah.
it. Like, no
Yeah.
problem. But yeah, Jules is great. So that's really cool that you've gotten the stamp of approval from two different fire people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, at least it wasn't just your cousin being like, oh, great job,
Yeah. Yeah.
family. Like,
Mm.
because I feel like my family's done that before where they're like, yeah, it was great. They haven't read.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I
You
don't
never
care.
know.
Just lie to me. I love a lie. Like, I'm not going to judge you if you didn't read it, but you told me it was great. I'll take it.
Yep.
I love
Absolutely.
attention.
Yeah.
um,
Nice.
so for the next book, since it's not going to be like a linear series, what kind of information are you starting to look at? Are you even thinking about it? Or are you still neck deep in promo that you're like, I can't think about it right now?
I'm 50 pages into the sequel. Yes. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I've had two ideas for sequels for a while. Um, wasn't sure which one to do first, but I decided on the one I'm doing, and then the next one I think will be it'll be a good place to put the next one.
Sure.
So yeah, and um, so this one is more of a straight ahead sort of crime thriller.
Okay.
So so in the story, like Elmore Leonard once said, I think it was him, said like every character should want something.
Hmm.
Like so every character should have a motivation. So the novel I had written previously in 2009, Jack gets a hold of it's like once again very offbeat. He gets a hold of $250,000 worth of Civil War banknotes.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um,
As one does.
so yeah, right, exactly.
Sure.
That was the MacGuffin of that novel. The whole thing was look, all these different people were trying to get their hands on these banknotes,
Hmm.
and so he came up with he got half of them. He got away with taking half of them, and he thought, "Yep, I'm on easy street. Like,
Yeah.
let the fun begin." And then he realizes they're so hot that
Yeah.
nobody wants to
How do you
fence
sell
them.
that?
Right, exactly. And so one of the people he was racing against was the local mob boss, and so that guy pretty much put the word. I was like, those are mine.
Yeah.
Like he's
See
got
'em.
this stuff, he's got this money, and that's mine. So if anybody even looks at her, like I will have your head.
Yeah.
So it starts. So this novel, Fire and Wrath, starts off with him desperate, trying to do anything to sell these banknotes and get them off his hands, and nobody will buy them. And he doesn't. And it's funny because he's carrying around 250 grand worth of property, but he doesn't have a dime to his name.
Yeah.
Like all his money is gone. So he's super desperate. And so he's lured into doing this investigation by the deputy saying, "Hey, if you help me, I'll find a fence for your stuff." But he was lying.
Yeah.
Spoiler, sorry.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought the next novel should be resolving this whole thing with the banknotes. So
Yeah.
the without, like I said, without giving anything away, the crime boss has caught up to him and says, "Okay, I'm not going to kill you, even though I should. But if you do this job for me, then I'll give you like 50 cents on the dollar for the banknotes, and you're free and clear. But you've got to do this job for me." And of course, it's a super dangerous, super deadly job.
Yeah.
So that's the thrust of this one.
Okay.
So
Is the deputy still, or is the cop from the first book going to be part of it?
no,
Okay.
no. But characters from the previous novel do come back.
Sure.
And it's once again, it'll be like this unlikely alliance of two people.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sick. Yeah. Because I grew up on all the buddy cop movies from the 80s, and a huge influence on me was 48 Hours with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
So that idea of a cop and a criminal working together, like that was part of the genesis of Fire and Wrath.
Yeah.
Just this idea of people from opposite sides working together with their own troubled history.
And I mean, that's still a trope that works today. Like on the new show Found on NBC. I mean, she's working with her kidnapper to find missing people. I mean,
really?
She's also trying to bring him to justice, but the first season was she had him. She kidnapped the kidnapper and made him work her cases with her. It's a great show. Found on NBC. Not sponsored, but like it's just I love a zippy show that's like 42 minutes. Kind of know what's going to happen. And you just go for it. That's why I love it. That's why I will always be a cable TV girly, not just streaming. Although I was just watching Murder, She Wrote, so a little bit different.
Nice.
Yeah, I was having it's a rainy day here in New England, as you know, that I was like, I think we're gonna have a Murder, She Wrote afternoon. I have Boston College on now. I don't know why. I don't really like college football. Just to talk sports, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really so. What kind of research have you? Well, I guess did you have to research Civil War bonds at all?
Yep. Yeah, I did, and I had to double check because I started writing this novel in 2010, but I kept having to put it down to do other things. So I think I just looked them up on eBay at the time, and of course the prices vary, and I don't go into too specific with it, like how much each banknote is worth, like if it's $100 banknote or what. But the prices have more or less stayed the same. So I just had to. I think I had to just adjust the actual number of banknotes on there.
Equal the amount you want.
Yeah. So I think it was. I have a pretty good memory. I think it was like 1,183 banknotes equal about 250 grand, like on eBay.
Good. So, right. Depending on if there's an appraiser who's like scrupulous. Right. If it's a Pawn Stars, guys, they'll be like, "We'll give you $10 for it," Exactly. Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like maybe I'm identifying with Jack a little bit, but I feel like you would do the cursory search and be like, "Yo, it's $50,000," and then you're like, good to go. That's all you need to. You're not going to go. Especially if you have other things going on, you're not going to look at each and every bill and So I think that's realistic of the way to do it. And then with this, all the research you did for this one and for the previous book, was there stuff that you really wanted to put in, but you were like, this is so esoteric and so niche that I don't think it should go in the book, but I love it and I will remember it forever?
Like with the research?
Yeah. Like just with your research, because I know I have a lot of friends who do historical mysteries and they say they fall down those rabbit holes all the time. And they're like, I could research for like 3 hours and only use 15 minutes worth of information, but I'm going to remember the rest of it from here on.
Yeah, because I did research like famous fires. Like, if do you remember the Coconut Grove fire from way
I
back
mean, I
when?
know of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So my grandfather was in that fire.
Whoa,
Yeah. Um,
that's
and
amazing.
he and his friend were there with they were on a date with two women,
Yeah.
double date, and he actually jumped out a window to get out of there.
Oh my God.
And then but like the smoke got to him, and then I think he passed out on the street. So the responders thought he was dead,
Oh my God.
and then they stacked him with all the other bodies.
Oh
So we
my
woke
God.
up surrounded by, yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, it was, and the bot like a Boston Globe writer did like a whole series on it, and they published it in a book. And my father gave me that book, but probably like 10 years ago to read. So it talked about everything that went wrong, like all the fire hazards, and it
Sure.
was like this perfect storm of stuff. So I just for examples, because like so Jack is like the expert, and they're trying to figure out the motive, like, and most arsons like can be divided into four different categories. It's like revenge, profit, fraud, and something else. And
Just say love.
so
It's always love.
yeah, look,
It's
yeah.
always love in there
Um,
somewhere.
yeah, just like the joy, like
Yeah.
the yeah, the thrill of doing it. And so I had to, since Jack's the narrator and he's the
Yeah. The
the
voice.
authority, like I needed to provide like examples. So he talked about, well, there was this fire like in 1990 that was absolutely revenge driven, but there was this and this, like, and the killer immediately had remorse, and he confessed like uh, the next day when the cops caught up to him and
Yeah.
stuff. So, and he was already sorry about it, and so I had to contrast that with the string that they're investigating, because it's been going on for weeks. Like in like every 2 weeks he hits a different house, and there's been no sign of him, no hint of remorse. He's just like the
Doing it,
Terminator.
moving
He's just like,
on. Yeah.
yeah. So I needed to find real life examples that would contrast with, okay, this this particular MO like just doesn't line up with anything
Right.
I've ever seen. So yeah, so I quoted it, like I went into a few famous examples and stuff, um and I found some other ones, because like there can be some really twisted arson stories
I
that you
watch
can,
Criminal Minds. I know there's
yeah,
crazy ass people out there.
yeah, yeah. So I think I found some pretty twisted um examples of this sort of stuff, and it was just probably too graphic to use, or too bizarre. Yeah. So, but yeah, I learned a lot in
Yeah.
the course of the thing.
So note, if you're in Plymouth County and any suspicious fires happen,
I
know who to look at. Just saying.
yeah, I'll yeah,
No, I'm just kidding. But we all
yeah.
say that, it's like I swear to God, like
Oh
I
yeah.
actually I moved the book 3 is actually set in a different town because I was like, well, my books are set in Abington, which is where I live. I
Oh, okay.
don't want to keep
Okay.
killing people here because like I want them to like me because I just want them to like me. So I'm like, okay, we'll move it away. And then I think I'm writing book 4 now, and it's like it's going to be in Vermont. So I'd like to
Oh,
move them away so that if there's any suspicious deaths in Abington, they don't go, oh, that mystery writer lives here, and
mm,
she's killed a
mm,
few of us already. So um,
mm.
we're getting close to the end. I
Okay.
like 10-ish minutes. So I do want to make sure that my favorite thing to do is get book recommendations from my authors that come on. So is there a book you've read recently? Is there a book that's guided you? Is there a book that you just always recommend to people? I'm open to any and all suggestions.
Okay. Two books stand out to me. They're both older. One is probably more well known than the other, but so I mean, I'm a huge Dennis Lehane fan.
Hmm.
Like I discovered him like in the early 2000s, and that he's absolutely a gigantic influence, because he took neo noir and made it current. He brought it up to date, and that was
Me?
a huge, yeah. He brought it mainstream. So that was an absolute huge inspiration to me. So I would say, I mean, all of his books are good, especially the Kenzie Gennaro books. But I would say Darkness Take My Hand, the second one, where they are tracking a serial killer, um, really stands out to me. They're all great, but
Right.
that one in particular was just at the like Patrick and Angie's relationship, the way it was they were developing, and just the person they were up against. Yeah, I could see some parallels between that in my book. Like, probably took a little bit of influence from it. So I think huge. That's enormous. And then another one that's not as well known is called By Reason of Insanity by Shane Stevens. Um, and that was written back in the 70s, and it's about the hunt for a serial killer, which I will say has one of the greatest twists at the very end, at the very last page. And I think I read that in like 2007, and that still pops in my head.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so if someone likes really just hardcore procedural, like a dark, grim story hunting a serial killer, like that one would be tough to beat.
And I mean, it's the time now. I mean, the uh Alex Cross series is now big on
Yep.
Netflix. I mean, if you're looking for serial killers, I have not watched it. I do love the guy playing Cross, but like,
Yes.
I didn't watch any of the other ones. But my dad's like, "Oh, I loved it, except I would do this differently." I'm like, "Relax, relax, director ass, like relax." But that's really those are some great suggestions. I like that because they're different. Because a lot of times I'm interviewing cozy authors, so I'm getting cozy. Kate Carlisle's book file mysteries and the fixer uppers, and so I like when people come out of like left field, no pun intended, for the podcast. You're welcome. Yeah, I like that because it kind of opens, as you can see from my back, I have a gajillion books and there's all different genres, a lot of sci-fi over here. But now the important question of the podcast: are the Red Sox going to get Juan Soto?
I have no idea.
That's the only baseball question on my mind right now. Is like, are they going to do it? David Ortiz went on a podcast and said, as his godfather, I told him to come to Boston. So,
all right.
I would personally listen to David Ortiz personally.
Yes.
But we also need pitching. So, you're a Boston guy, so you know.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to ask you, did you get to see the comeback special that came out on Netflix recently?
I haven't watched it yet. I'm like saving it for like a day when I'm like bummed and like in the dumps and I need something to like, because I watched what was it 4 Days in October a while ago, and that one makes me cry still because my Red Sox stories in the 5 minutes we have left is that I was at Curry College from 2000 to 2004. So I graduated in May 2004. So I saw the Aaron Bleeping Boone home run while living in Boston. Then I moved back to Pennsylvania to where I grew up, sort of. My dad was stationed down there. And so I had to watch 2004 from my living room in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And I was so bummed. But my grandfather was still alive. So the next day, first phone call, like, Grandpa, what happened? Like, what is going on? I just remember how we stayed up so late all those nights. I mean, I remember 2, 3 o'clock. And I'm like, I couldn't do that now. I hit 40 and I'm like, girl, you guys got to wrap this. I'm happy for a pitch clock because I am tired. Like, let's get this rolling. I do a lot of my listening on the radio. So I can fall asleep and then wake back up, which is kind of, I listen to the Celtics now too. It's the same. It's like, I'll fall asleep for those middle 2 quarters and then I'll wake up for the Peyton Pritchard half court shot and then I'll be fine. But yeah, I'm going to watch it because I heard it was
so good.
So good.
It's so good.
And I know I'm going to cry through the Tim Wakefield stuff because he was my favorite. I'm just like, I'm already mentally, okay, pick a day when you do anything.
Yeah, they do a good job with that. They really pay him good tribute. But it's 3 episodes. It is just so incredibly good. I was choked up through like half of it and smiling for the other.
Yeah, right. The good stuff I would smile for. I did try reaching out to them, the Red Sox, to be like, hey, when you have your winter weekend in Springfield at the MGM, like, can I come sell my books? Because like baseball and the Cats name. The cats' names are Dewey, Petey, and Poppy because those are my 3 favorites. My Aunt Alice was a big Dwight Evans fan. I met Pedroia once. My grandfather met Pedroia once until the day my grandfather passed. He said, "Oh, that's my guy, Pedroia, my best friend." He called Manny Ramirez, and I thought that was cute. He's very Connecticut, New Hampshire guy. So they have not reached back to me. Let's put it that way.
All right.
I have a friend who sells concessions, so I'm like, just like slip it into John Henry's beer order. Like, that's fine. It's totally fine, Peggy. You can do it. But I appreciate you coming on, and I'm so glad you got to the crime bake. And make sure you remember for next year with Lori Raider Day, who's also amazing. And hopefully, I'll put your name forth if you want to be on a panel.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I would
Panels
love
are
that.
really fun at Crime Bake
Yeah.
because it is small and you're not like super stressed that people are
Mm.
watching you.
Yeah.
As someone who moderated a panel, they don't care. I hit my head
Yeah.
before the panel, so I don't really remember it. It could have been a disaster. I hit my head on the coat rack and I was like, let's just
Oh,
do this, guys. But
all
everybody
right.
liked it. So um,
Good.
we will stay. So everybody go buy Fire and Wrath, 5 stars
Yes.
on Amazon, and
Mm.
stay tuned for the next series book in Jack's journey. Ooh, Jack's journey.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
and then you'll come back and we'll talk again.
Okay. Sounds
If
great.
I'm
Thank you
still
so much.
recording, I am assuming. I mean, what else am I
Yeah.
going to do during my day?
No, I
Oh,
love it. Thank you so much. Oh,
I know. Where can people find you? Like online and stuff.
Um, oh yeah, so I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. You can on Instagram, William F. Carter. Facebook, Bill Carter. You can search Bill Carter Harvard because that's where I work. Because there are a million Bill Carters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm working on getting an author website. I'm working with a promotion company to build one for me. We'll see what happens. But yeah, otherwise on Amazon, on Barnes and Nobles, you can find the book. Amazon's probably the best. And yeah, I'm just trying to find more ways to get out there. I have another cable interview next week
Oh, good.
or the week after. Yeah, I've been doing a few of those local ones
Yep.
and stuff. So just doing everything I can to try to get it out there and get some visibility. So
So
yeah,
buy it now.
yes,
My promotion. Buy it
yeah,
now.
yeah. And there are signed copies at Barnes and Noble Hingham.
Yes, the
Yeah,
best, right? Oh,
yeah.
awesome. Thank you so
So good.
much.
Thank you a million. Thanks a million for having me on. Yeah.
Wasn't Bill so nice? Like I'm terrified to read his book because of the fire stuff, but like also with the amount of good press it's getting, what a nice guy he is, and his lineage of Harvard um, education, it must be great. So I think my dad's getting it for Christmas. So don't tell him if he's not listening to this. So spoiler alerts. I did just look it up. I think it's at the Company Theater in Norwell where he would be playing reprising his role as Bob Cratchit, and it looks like it's already all sold out. Like I was thinking, oh, it might be good to take like my dad and my brother and his girlfriend because like we need stuff to do, but who knew it was such a popular show? So, and then I fell into a rabbit hole because they have dance classes, and I might want to try to audition for some musical theater. And I'm also not kidding about being his Britney Spears singer if the band ever wants to cover Britney Spears. So look for his band Faded Halo. Stay tuned for his second book in the Jack series, and for my publishing stuff, we're coming to the end of the year, so not a lot going on. I'm still waiting for the cover for book 3, and hopefully we'll be getting that one going soon. I just did an event last week at the Next Chapter and More in Quincy, which is a great new bookstore, and got to see so many great people. Sold out of the first book, which was really exciting. And the owner, Helena, is just a light in the literature world, and I got to go on after Hank Philippi Ryan, who's like my secret idol. I love her so much. So next, nothing for the rest of this year as of right now. A couple more podcast interviews coming up in December. I had a gentleman reach out yesterday who actually wrote a book about no hitters, and I'm kind of excited about that, which is so weird because, as you know, here in Boston, we've had a few. Little John Lester. John Lester was a complete game, I think. Clay Buckles, things like that. So I'm excited to read his book and talk to him in the next couple weeks. I also signed up to do the Wreaths Across America because my grandparents are buried in the Bourne Cemetery, and hopefully I'll get to put a wreath on their cemetery this year. And now, before I forget, books I'm currently reading. For those that follow on Instagram, I posted about this book yesterday. It's called Her Night at the Museum, and not many people remember this movie, but there was a Meg Ryan. Was it Meg Ryan? Yeah, Meg Ryan and Hugh Jackman's like first big role, Kate and Leopold, and it's very much that vibes. He's a statue that comes to life. She is a divorcee who's looking for love. It's Kate and Leopold, but like extra spicy. So if you're not into the spice level, maybe don't read it, or read it and then skip those parts like I do because I'm not a spice person. But I love the story anyway, and the love story is really cute. So check that out by Bryn Donovan, who we're now friends on Blue Sky because, oh, big news, guys. I deleted Twitter. So I won't get too far into my politics, but you can assume my politics from my purple hair and my very liberal feed. And Twitter finally just became too much and a hellscape. And so I deleted it. and I joined Blue Sky, and it's lovely, and I'm meeting a lot of book people, and still have my sports people on there, so they're all joining over too. So hopefully it doesn't get ruined. So you can find me on there. I think I'm just Nicole Aslan on that one. No more with the Naslin. But anyway, so you can find some of my book stuff there. I'm also finishing friend of the program, Olivia Black's new book, A New Lease on Death, where a woman, and weirdly in Boston, teams up with the ghost in her apartment to solve crime. So that's kind of cool. I started it on NetGalley and then got distracted, so I picked it up at the library. So Olivia, you are in the Old Colony Library Network, in case you wanted to know. And for Olivia, the Capitals are doing really well, except Ovechkin broke his leg. But other than that, he was on pace to get all those accolades for the scoring title and stuff. But those are what I'm reading. Reading a bunch on Kindle, a lot of historical Kindle Unlimited mysteries, because that's my heart, even though I don't want to write them. Although I did read a book, or I read an article in the Smithsonian Magazine about a woman who became like the first entrepreneurial woman in Dawson City during the gold rush, and then she married a count who turned out to be fake, and then he took all her money, and then she became destitute, and then she had to go reopen stuff again. So that story fascinated me, and I'm like, ooh, if I were the type to like write a historical mystery, that might be it. So if that happens, you'll be the first to know. But other than that, I did ask the important question I'm sure you heard during the podcast, which is, will the Red Sox sign Juan Soto? Who knows? So far, no big moves have been made, but next podcast, that might change. So we'll see. We shall see. And if you know anybody with the Red Sox organization, have them hit me up so that I can go sell my books at Winter Weekend or at the ballpark at some point. So until then, happy reading and go Red Sox.